Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up. So I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in August, all of the movies that I want to talk about, and all of the TV shows that I watched. This is definitely a bit of a different reading month. I had so much going on in August. I spent a lot of the month extremely stressed out. So I ended up reading a lot of romance and a lot of thrillers. I did read one literary fiction book, one graphic novel, and one nonfiction book as well. So I'll also talk about those, but I am going to kick things off with romance. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Business Casual by B.K. Borison. This is the fourth and final book in the Love Light Farm series, and I'm so sad to see this series come to an end. I've really just come to fall completely head over heels in love with the town of Inglewild, all of its quirky residents, and each of the four couples within the books. In this one, we are following Nova, who is a tattoo artist. She's the sister of the love interest from book 2, and then we're also following Charlie, who is the brother of the female protagonist from book 1. And it's so cute. I really enjoyed their romance. So the two of them started off as kind of like a casual, business casual kind of friends with benefits situation, and obviously they both do either already have or form stronger feelings for one another. They both have some of the same kind of internal struggles where they feel like they're not good enough for certain things, and it's just so good. And Charlie is like a big lawyer who works in New York City, but he's agreed to spend a month in Inglewild to help look over Love Light Farms, which is the Christmas tree farm that is owned by Stella from book 1, Bennett from book 2, and Layla from book 3. He's kind of like their partner in this one, and it's so cute the way that he organizes things and like gets really involved in the town. Also in Inglewild there is like this phone tree that is so much fun. They all just text each other like the most random stuff. It's always gossip. It's never like anything that's actually important that's happening in the town. And in this book, Charlie is like mysteriously kind of left off of the phone tree, and he's like pretty devastated about it. He's like, we'll do anything to get back on the phone tree. And it's just so cute. Like, it was such a heartwarming read. It just made me so happy. And again, I just love this town so much. And each of the books takes place in a different season. Business Casual takes place in autumn, so this was kind of like the perfect time to read it. And I'm really looking forward to revisiting these books and revisiting these characters again in the future. Actually have never reread a romance book, but I think that I want to start. Like, there are a bunch of them that I just have such strong happy feeling toward that I really do want to reread, and this series is definitely one that fits that bill. Next up, I have Haunted Ever After by Jen DeLuca. I was so excited to read this one because I'm the biggest fan of her Well Met series, which is a series set at Renaissance fairs. It's a romance series set at Renaissance fairs. I cannot even describe like how much I love those books. So for her to be writing something new, something called Haunted Ever After, I was totally in, totally excited. And I actually buddy read this one along with my friends Kelly and Kim. That made the experience even more fun. I really liked getting to talk to them about it. Kim and I both loved Well Met so much, and we convinced Kelly to pick them up once she started like getting back into reading, and she literally read the whole series in a month because she also loved it. So the fact that the three of us got to read this together was like really special, but we all loved it. This one follows a girl named Cassie, and it takes place in a town called Boneyard Key. It's one of the Florida Keys. This town is haunted, and it's like a total like tourist town. Like, lots of people come to go on like the ghost tours, and there's this whole book that details like all of the ghosts within the town. I also like just thought that it was really unique because I feel like it's pretty rare that we get a haunted like a tropical setting. This is another one where it's like a small town, so you get some quirky characters. There were some people that I totally grew to love. As you were reading the book, it was very evident who the next books in the series will follow. I have high hopes for who book 2 will follow, and then following that, who book 3 will follow. So I hope that this one does well enough to warrant those next books in the series. And so we are following Cassie, who's from Orlando, and she feels like she's kind of been left behind by a lot of her friends. A lot of her friends have gotten married, have started having kids, and they have like a group chat where everybody keeps up with each other, but anytime that Cassie writes something in there, she seems to be ignored, and her friends do a lot of like mom things together and leave her out. So it's really sad. Cassie's landlord is raising the price like so much on her apartment in Orlando. So instead, she buys this like old Victorian house in Boneyard Key, decides to move there, try to like strike out and do something on her own, even though she'll be way further away from any of her friends and family who her friends do not treat her well anyway. She meets Nick, who is a super cute barista. The two of them kind of hit it off like pretty immediately, and Cassie is living in this old Victorian house, as I said, and it seems like there is most likely a ghost that is also inhabiting her home, and she makes friends with the girl who does ghost tours. They end up doing like town research together, and there are some like paranormal things that are happening, but it's so much fun. Like, I just really enjoyed it. I felt like it was really atmospheric. I loved all of the talk about the baked goods. Definitely made me crave like cinnamon buns and banana bread. Lots and lots of pastries. I really liked Cassie's story arc. I will say I don't like it as much as I liked the Well Met series, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. I'm really excited to continue on. Then I read A Photo Finish by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Gold Rush Ranch series, and it is a cowboy romance. I thought that the first book in the series was okay. I was not like overly excited to continue reading, but I'm so glad that I did, because this was actually a 5-star read for me. I loved it so much. We're following a character named Violet, who is very much like the shy, good girl. She's like, has like the image of being like a good girl. She's the youngest of like a lot of brothers. I think some of them are actually in Elsie's second series, the Chestnut Spring series. So in this one, Violet is a jockey and she races horses for Gold Rush Ranch. At the very beginning of the book, she ends up getting an injury and she has to stay with Cole, who is the brother of the love interest from book 1. He's one of the owners of Gold Rush Ranch, and it turns out that the two of them actually have a little bit of like a racy history with one another. Cole used to be in the military. He's extremely protective of Violet, and the way that the two of them interact around each other is just so cute. I really, really loved their romance, and this book made me cry like multiple times. So I'm so excited now to keep going. I totally get why people love cowboy romances so much, and I'm just so excited to like keep reading Elsie's books. Highly, highly, highly recommend this one. Then I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. Ali Hazelwood's books are pretty much always a guaranteed like 4 to 5 star read for me, so I kind of have been like hoarding her backlist because, you know, I like to have one available, but since I've been doing that, I've kind of fallen behind, and even after reading this one, I still have 3 books of hers left to go. Is it 4? No, 3. It might be 4. I still have to read Check and Mate, Love Theoretically, Not in Love, and Bride. Yeah, so I still have 4 of them left, but I've read all of her short stories. I read The Love Hypothesis, and I have now read this. And this one was definitely a 4-star read for me, 4.5 stars probably. I really love this one. We're following Bee, who is a female neurobiologist, and she is contracted by NASA to help develop new technology for this helmet that's going to be used on astronauts, and she's going to be co-leading the project with somebody from NASA. Turns out that the person she's co-leading with is Levi, who is basically like her arch enemy from college. But obviously Levi has a very different interpretation of their past than Bee does, and the two of them in the present are so fun to follow. It's enemies to lovers, but it's like not really enemies on Levi's side, it's really just enemies on Bee's side. But she's such a fun character. She's so vibrant. I really like her whole backstory, her relationship with her sister. She also is obsessed with Marie Curie, and I've always loved Marie Curie, so it was really fun to read that. She runs an account online called What Would Marie Do? And it's basically like a sanctuary for female scientists, and like it allows them to find community with a lot of like the different kinds of issues that they struggle with in their work lives, and it's a common theme amongst like many female scientists. So that's really fun. And then there's a bit of like a You've Got Mail situation going on there, because she has one person that she has been talking to for a while, but they don't know each other's identities. And then I also really liked all of the discussion about standardized testing, the inequality that goes along with it. So just overall, this was like an excellent, excellent read. Really loved it. Ali Hazelwood, once again, does not disappoint. Then moving on to thrillers, I read 2 amazing thrillers and 1 okay thriller, but I'm going to talk about the amazing ones first. So the first one, and my favorite thriller that I've read this year by far, is Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. Amy Tintera is actually a YA author, and I believe this is like her debut adult novel. It was so good. We're following a girl named Lucy, and Lucy does not know if she killed her best friend Savvy, but it doesn't doesn't really matter because everybody else from her town believes that she was guilty. But it kind of happened like before the days of the internet, so she's been able to kind of skate by without being like nationally recognized. However, a podcaster named Ben decides to dredge up the old case, puts it to the forefront of the internet, so obviously things blow up. Lucy loses her job, she essentially loses her boyfriend, and then she goes back to her small Texas hometown, and she's kind of peer pressured into giving an interview to this podcaster by her kind of alcoholic grandma, who is like the best. She's so much fun. Lucy's parents are awful. You also get to know about Lucy's ex-husband, and then we do see a lot of podcast interviews with other people in the town, so it's interesting to hear their perspective on Lucy as well. Lucy is very like no nonsense, does not take anything from anyone, but she's also super sarcastic, and her sense of humor is so funny, especially when it comes to people being uncomfortable around her because they think that she killed someone. She kind of like goes with that because it's the way that she amuses herself. So obviously we do eventually find out what happened, but I really enjoyed being in Lucy's head. I thought this was such a great read. I was so engaged. I read it so quick. Like I could not put it down. It was one of those books that I just picked up and was like, this is what I needed. Absolutely love this. This was a 4.5-star thriller for me. And then the other thriller that I read is The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I've been really wanting to read some of Frida McFadden's books, and this seemed like a really good place to start. It's one that I've heard about pretty often, and I loved it. So in this one, we are following a housemaid who is working for one of the most crazy families ever. She's constantly being like gaslit by the wife of this family, tries to make herself look like not as attractive as she is because the wife seems to be very jealous about her getting anywhere near the husband, and the husband seems like the nicest guy in the world. The wife seems like a crazy woman. So she's just trying to like kind of deal with her. There's also like a really psychotic child. When she gets this job, she is currently like homeless. She's living out of her car. She had just gotten out of prison like not too long ago, and she did not really have many job prospects. So you might be thinking like, why would anyone put up with this toxic work environment? And it's because she really doesn't have any other prospects out there, so she is doing it. And I love the way that the narrative just like completely twists and you find things out as you keep reading, obviously, but it was a wild ride and I really loved it. My only two gripes with this book, which are so specific, are one, they constantly talked about how it took place in Long Island, which number one, if you're from Long Island, you always say on Long Island, you do not say in Long Island. So that drove me nuts because I was like, people who live here do not say that. But then the second thing is that they never said what town it took place in, and I really wanted to know what town it was. So very minor complaints, but really love this one overall, and I'm so excited to read books 2 and 3 in the series. I hope that they are like even half as good as this one. I also read 5 Survive. This was Holly's only thriller that I hadn't yet read, so I've now read everything that she's published, which I am glad about. I do really like Holly as an author. I think that her YA thrillers are really good. I loved the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I really enjoyed the reappearance of Rachel Price. However, 5 Survive was a miss for me. This one follows a group of kids. The main character, Red, all of her characters always have 3-letter names, but our main character is Red, and they are all going on a road trip together, and they're in Pennsylvania. They're driving in this like caravan, and they're basically forced into like breaking down, and then there is like a sniper that is hunting them from the outside. We don't know why, but he says that one of them has a secret. They know who they are and they have to say it, and then everyone else will be allowed to go. There's a lot of like infighting to find out who it is that has the secret. There's one guy that is just the worst, and like obviously he's meant to be written that way. You're not supposed to like him, but he was like super insufferable. It was like too much. It was pretty obvious what was going on. There were like a couple of twists that I didn't see coming, but overall I just like didn't find this one as engaging as her other books, and thought it was kind of like more forgettable, honestly. I am glad that I read it because I do want to read all of her books, but it's not something that I would recommend if you don't like avidly read. Then I read Lightfall, The Girl and the Galdurian by Tim Probert, and this is a I believe it's a middle grade graphic novel. I really liked the artwork in it. I thought that the art style was really cute, but I thought that the book itself was just kind of okay. It's following a girl who basically like runs an apothecary with her grandfather, and her grandfather is called the Pig Wizard. She ends up running into like a bit of an issue while she's out collecting some supplies. She's helped by a Galdurian who is like this kind of giant creature from a race that is thought to be extinct. And when the two of them get back to the apothecary, they see a note from Bee's grandfather saying that he had to like run out to do something, but then when he doesn't come back, the two of them set out on their own adventure in order to find her grandfather, and they run into a lot of trouble along the way. This one is the first in a series, so there are currently 2 more of them that are published, and I'm definitely going to continue and read the next installments because I do think that it was really cute. I did really like the art style. It was a very quick read. I don't think that it was anything like earth-shattering, but I thought it was like, you know, cute enough. Then I read Cue the Sun, The Invention of Reality TV by Emily Nussbaum. I read Emily's last book, I Like Watching, and I really enjoyed that. That was like a collection of TV essays, so I was excited that she was writing another nonfiction book in the television sphere, and more specifically reality TV, because I really enjoy reality TV. So my one complaint with this one is that I wanted there to be like a lot more about Bravo, and the chapter on Bravo was like super short. It really did not talk about anywhere near as much as I thought it was going to talk about there, but it was really interesting to hear like the origins of reality TV and how technically reality started with shows like Candid Camera, and actually Candid Camera was first a radio broadcast, so even before television, like reality was something that was kind of like in the zeitgeist, and it was interesting to see like how that has evolved over time. Like she talked about, you know, like America's Funniest Home Videos and shows that I never really thought of as reality TV, but like actually are. And then that one reality show that followed like a family in New York City. I remember hearing about that one it was from the 70s. That was really like the first family that was kind of followed, but it only got 1 season. I feel like it's come up like randomly a couple of times, but I never really knew too much about it. So it was interesting to hear the history of that. There was a huge chapter on Survivor. There might have even been like 2 chapters on Survivor, and that was really interesting. Always really liked that show. Like I liked the first seasons. I watched them like when I was younger, when they were first airing, and then I totally fell off of it. I haven't watched it in like 15 years or something. It was interesting to hear how Survivor kind of shaped competition TV. They also talked about the real world. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting, and I really enjoyed the book. But again, I wish that there was like a little bit more on Bravo. And lastly, I read The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. This is a literary fiction book, and I've really been trying to like incorporate more different genres into my reading. So this was one that I heard really good things about. I picked it up, and honestly, I thought it was just okay. We're following a guy named Joe who is an indigenous worker that used to pick berries on a farm in Maine with his father and brothers. And one day his younger sister Ruthie went missing, and Joe was the last person to see her alive. So we're following him in present tense, and then we also get flashbacks to the past, and we just see like how that has affected him over the years. Oh, and Joe is also like very ill at the moment, and he is kind of like reflecting back on where things in his life went wrong. His story is very tragic. And then we're also following Norma, who is a young girl that's being raised in Maine by 2 parents that she has absolutely nothing in common with. Her mom is super overprotective, and she does not like to answer any questions. She gets like headaches anytime that Norma asks questions about seeing photos of her when she was a kid, or she's always had these dreams where like there's somebody there that's her mom, but it's like not her mom, and her anytime like anything like that comes up, her mom just like shuts her down, like doesn't want to hear anything about it. It's pretty clear from the beginning that Norma is Ruthie, who is the missing child that is Joe's sibling, and we're following Norma in the present day timeline as she is growing up, learning like more of the differences between her and her family and her relationship with her parents, which is like not the best, and then she does have a really good relationship with her aunt. So it just kind of like follows that journey. I think it does explore a really important and interesting topic about how when somebody, like especially in the past, because it takes place in 1962, so like when someone who wasn't white disappeared, it wasn't like a high priority case for police officers there in Maine. They didn't really look into what went on with Ruthie, and her family was just left to be heartbroken for all of these years. So I thought that aspect of it was interesting, but I wasn't really engaged in the book. I was kept like reading it and being like, but I like know what's going on, so I don't know. I don't think it had like the same kind of impact as it would if you like didn't know that Norma was Ruthie, but I also don't know how it could have been told in a way where you didn't know. Not one that I would recommend. And then for TV and movies, I finally watched The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. You can actually rent it to watch it now, so I finally did that. I personally didn't really like the book. Like, I thought the book was fine, but I didn't love it, and I was hoping that I would like the movie better. And while I did enjoy the movie, I still nothing like compares to the original Hunger Games trilogy for me. So in this one, we're following Snow as like a young man, and they are struggling to get people to watch the Hunger Games. All of like these young kids are basically assigned different tributes and to try to help them and to try to like increase ratings so that the games will still go on in future years, and whoever wins will get this like big grant. And Snow's family does not have a lot of money, so he like really needs to win it. He gets extremely close with his tribute, who's named Lucy. Lucy is a singer, so she is really interesting and she does get a lot of people to watch, but obviously Snow is working for the Capitol, and he's one of the people that is working to make the games interesting, so a serious power imbalance when it comes to their relationship. It was interesting, but I just don't think it was like the most necessary. I'm honestly so excited for Suzanne Collins' next book, which is going to be Haymitch's Hunger Games. I think that I'm going to enjoy that like so much more than the book about Snow and the movie about Snow. Then on Netflix, I watched the first season of the Good Girl's Guide to Murder adaptation, and I also like didn't love this one. I thought it was okay, but I just think that the books are so much better. It's also kind of funny because I read the American versions of the books and I totally forgot that Holly Jackson is actually like a British author. So everyone had British accents and I was like, oh, this just isn't how I experienced it. And I didn't think about how that would be a thing. That was like a little bit jarring, but I did feel like there were a lot of like changes made to Pip as a person. Like in the books, she comes off as really like brave and she like pushes people and she's really good investigative journalist. Whereas in the show, it felt like they made her extremely juvenile and it just seemed like she was making like a series of really bad decisions. It didn't seem like she had like the journalistic integrity that she does in the books. So that was a bit disappointing to me. I also felt like the first episode, like maybe first 2 episodes were like, maybe even first like 3 episodes were like pretty slow, and there's only 6 episodes total. And then like the last episode almost just like resolved everything, and it was like it just seemed like too fast. Like the pacing felt off. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like they could have done a better job with telling the story. And also I didn't really buy like the romantic chemistry between Pip and Sal's brother, who she's like investigating the case with. He also seemed like more like an adult and she like seemed like a child, so it was just weird. But if there are more seasons, I will watch them, but I just was like kind of disappointed since I love the books so much. And then the last show that I'll talk about is Love Island USA season 6. So I consider this completely like done because the reunion show took place in August and I was waiting until that happened to like check it off as finished. This was so interesting. I've never watched Love Island before. This was like a brand new experience for me. I had not known going into it what a commitment it is because there is a new episode like every day. The only days that they give you a break are on Wednesdays. There's no new episode. And then on Saturdays, there's a show called After Sun, which is essentially like a talk show with some of the contestants that got voted off, some people who do like a podcast about the show, and past Love Island contestants. So I like didn't really feel the need to watch that very often. I think I only really watched like 1 episode because Katie Maloney from Vanderpump Rules was on it, so I wanted to see that. Otherwise, I just watched like the main episodes, which was overwhelming. Like I felt like I was just always behind. There was no way that I could watch a new episode every single day. Like that doesn't happen. 24/7. It was so weird to me. Like, I've never watched a show like this. So like watching all of these people on an island that are just in bathing suits 24/7 was just like a strange experience. But by the like middle of it, I started really enjoying it, and I got really invested in some of like the different couples. Unfortunately, like many of them have broken up since the show's ended. However, I love the winners. Like, they are the ones that I wanted to win. I'm so glad that they did, and I'm so glad that they are still together. I really like them. I did really like a lot of like the girls individually, but I feel like the majority of guys on the show were terrible. Like, they were all awful. So that was disappointing to see, but it did make for a fun season of TV. Would I make this time commitment again? I'm not 100% sure. I would have to really think about it. I feel like it was a time. Like, it was enjoyable. I feel like there was like a point where it was everywhere. Everyone online was talking about it. So it was nice to like know what was going on and be included in that. The reason that I started watching it is because Ariana from Vanderpump Rules is the new host, and I really love Ariana, so I was excited to see her like thriving. She has an amazing stylist for the show. Like, she basically just looks like a Barbie the entire season. She looks so beautiful. And yeah, I was just like really excited to see her, but she was in it significantly less than I thought that she was going to be. And that's probably my own fault because this is season 6 and I've never watched Love Island before. So I just kind of jumped in and I enjoyed it. That is everything. I also, like, I didn't have any time to play games this month. I was extremely busy, so no games to discuss, but that's everything that I read and everything that I had thoughts to share on when it came to things that I watched. So let me know if you've read anything that I've mentioned or if you've watched anything that I've mentioned and what your opinions are on them. And that's all that I have for this video, so I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!